Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Executive Table Talk. My name is JT O'Donnell. I'm the founder and CEO of Work It Daily, and I'm the moderator for today's event. I'm lucky enough to have four very talented executives joining me today to talk about performance reviews, do's and don'ts. So this topic is going to become super hot because if you aren't watching the media, if you aren't listening, then I would be shocked if you didn't realize that there are massive layoffs going on, lots of restructuring going on, and employees are going to start worrying about their jobs. And if they're not, then that's an even bigger concern. But it also, all of this is coinciding with what for many people comes annual review time or performance review time. So we need to be thinking about this as executives, as leaders, what we can do to make sure that these are productive conversations and that we're not really, taking on employees by surprise. And so today we're going to discuss that. Like I said, I've got four very talented individuals here discussing it with me here today. I want to welcome to the show John Shambari, Michael Willis, Lisa Perry, and Anna Smith. Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. So good to have you here. So look, I'm going to go into it. All of you are featured authors over at the Work It Daily site, and we're so lucky to have you. And you are all really weighed in on this subject. And I wanted to highlight a little bit about each one and have you speak to it. So, Michael, I'm going to put you in the hot seat first because I absolutely love how you spoke of the fact that a performance appraisal's, role should be to motivate the employee to better performance, right? By helping them understand how they can move away from, poor performance and move towards delivering on these critical objectives. But that word motivate really resonated with me. Talk to me about your experience in delivering performance appraisals and what you like to do so that it does feel, when I hear motivated, I mean, positive in some sense. So how does that happen in those situations for you?
Yes, I like to give people a sense of motivate them to be thirsty, to want more, to want to do better. I just don't. I like for it to be like a collaborative effort of many people that they work with, vendors, teams, different people that you interact with. I think I like the 360 approach of evaluation, but I really think it should motivate you to do more, do better, to reach for the fences. I really think and I think an employee should know, and the evaluation should be tied to the mission, the goals, and its competitors of a company. I mean, every employee should know what the mission is, the goals, and its competitors, current competitors. Current competitors, competitors that we're going to have, future competitors, and also new market entrants. I think these people and every employee should be tied to that. Their evaluation and how we evaluate them should be tied to their knowledge of that. So I definitely want to motivate.
I love it. And I love that you're making it clear to them, like, look, your job is here to help us win, right? You come back from the NFL, you come from the sports background. So I can see that. But I'm assuming that through that, you've really seen that it's important to, in order to motivate them, they've got to understand the value and the impact they have on the business and how they need to align themselves, like you said, to deal with competitors, to build new opportunities. I absolutely loved that piece. And at the same time, when we talk about sports and the metaphor, I'm going to flip to Anna because Anna, you said, look, the vast research shows that we need to deliver some tough and healthy feedback in these performance reviews because we can't just let them skate by. So I think that's exactly what Michael's saying, but I wanted you to expand on that when we talk about that, because I think a lot of leaders really hate delivering that hard feedback. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I don't think that there might be some folks out there that raise their hands for, in performance evaluation times, but for the vast majority of us, even though we might have felt that we have had done a really nice job, we're always fearful. And that comes from a couple of things. One, the lack of clarity around what's expected of me in my role, what's expected of me from a performance perspective. And therefore, what I do is what I believe is should be done. There's no particular clarity, a constant clarity, present. The second thing is that you as a manager need to make sure that you help them get there. What are some of the resources? What are some of the things specific to that particular individual that might help them get to that particular expectation that I just mentioned before? And then the last part, which is directly to this, is hold them accountable. And it is very critical that, we're held accountable as adults, but definitely from a performance perspective. one of the ways that I have found, interesting and pretty effective is changing the word feedback for a different term. For example, perspective. It doesn't change that it's going to be tough, or it's going to go deep, and it's probably going to be an important one as part of your career. But let me give you some perspective instead of let me give you some feedback. It automatically connects you at a different level.
I like that. So being mindful of the word choice and how you're delivering this information can enable you to deliver the tough conversation, but in a way they're going to keep their ears open and actually listen. That's fantastic. And that leads me to John, because John, in your feedback, you talked about how important the evaluation process needs to be as grounded as possible in evidence of practice. Can you expand on that? Like, so when this, I think for you, you were saying, look, in order to give a good performance feedback or performance review, performance perspective, like Anna said, you really have to make sure you've got your facts and you're speaking to them. Am I hearing that correctly?
You are, JT. So, especially in large organizations where you might have multiple people evaluating staff at a similar level, you really want to make sure that you're evaluating them based on performance and not on personality. So there are many cases in history where or in society where when you like someone, you rate them higher, and when you don't like them personally, you rate them lower. So we need to move beyond that and really ground evaluations in best practice. So do you also use a rubric to indicate what highly proficient level of work is versus a proficient level of work or a developing level of work? So are you really giving staff exemplars of what good quality looks like and what they need to do to get there? So the more that you have those rubrics in place, the more that you have those exemplars of best practice, I think getting to Anna's point about, when she was talking about, what helps get an employee or someone to the next level, all of those tools can really help workers, at any level of an organization, really do their best.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And we do mean to be mindful of that. I've seen so many people who they wait until it's performance review time, and suddenly they're trying to think back what they remember about what this person's done without being more intentional, like you're saying, and structuring that, which also leads into some stuff that Lisa, you brought to light, which I thought was really important. And that is, you talked about 69% of employees say they would work harder if they felt their efforts were better reorganized according to, the survey. So they want their stuff aligned. Well, in order to do that, that happens throughout the year. And you mentioned it's the little things throughout the year, having the conversations, realigning their efforts. So when they get to the performance review, they aren't being blindsided and told, hey, by the way, your performance hasn't been good all year. That shouldn't come as a shock to them. So talk to us a little bit about that and how you have avoided people having that, again, deer in headlights moment when they're being told, hey, you're not performing as you should.
Yeah, I think, people generally don't like, the employees and the ones giving the review, the process. It's not a comfortable process to go through. And so you've got to make it a more conversational daily activity, weekly, and ingrain it in everything that you do. And you have to be willing to give and take through that. And so you want to make sure that you've got your objectives, you've defined them, you're all aligned from individuals, department, throughout the organization, so that you're all working towards a North Star. And then during that you're having these casual conversations, but they're, as Michael and John and Anna said, that you've got these fact-based, that it's perspective, and you're having the conversations to say, say they did a report, or they did a presentation, that you're saying, you knocked that out of the park, and here's why, here are the facts. But here, I'm going to give you my perspective on some things that you can do to improve that. And that it's a casual conversation, and that you are open yourself for feedback from them, so that there's this trust and that there's this mutual conversation, that they don't feel threatened, that you can have this and you can develop, if there is a plan that needs to be developed for here's some areas for improvement, and you've got a clear action plan that you can do to put into place, so that when actual performance review time comes around, there are no surprises. You do not want to be surprised at that time. You want to have these casual conversations that are not threatening, that are open, and that you are getting feedback from others throughout the organization. So that's where you want to set it up for that kind of two-way conversation.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, all of you across the board gave such great advice here. And I want to open it up to everyone that's listening today. If you're just joining us, we're talking about performance reviews, do's and don'ts. We're talking to some amazing executives who are offering their perspective around what you can do to ensure that these are productive conversations, they're healthy conversations, and that, you know, again, we know that they're not the most joyous thing, that either side, all of you pointed out, we don't like often to be on the receiving end of them, giving them, you know. So the fact is, but we still have to do them, don't we? Right? We still have to do them. And I think one thing that I would say, and I want to go around and ask all of you, for the audience, if you are to receive a performance review that was unexpected, I want you to all put yourself in the position of that talent who is now being told in a performance review, hey, you're not up to snuff, and these are all the things that you did wrong. And they walk out of that thing just shocked, overwhelmed, and probably pretty emotional, you know, probably thinking, I want to quit, you know, what's happening here. I'd love to go around and see if each of you has maybe some advice for that person on what you think they should do and how they can maybe approach their manager after feeling so shocked like that. So I'm going to bounce it over to you, Michael, and have you go first. What would you tell them to do?
Well, I guess the initial response that I would have, I'd try to defend myself. Hey, I thought problems, and I can't believe you're saying this. So that'll be my first. And you want to take ownership of. If I was given a report like that, I'd say, look, I want to own this, but I just don't see it. But I used to work in New York, which is an at-will state, so they didn't need a reason to let you go or anything like that. So you had a white shirt on that should have been blue. They could say they didn't need a reason. But I've heard so many people walk out of, they say they got let go, and they say, 2 months ago, you gave me a great evaluation. You know, what happened? They just don't understand it. So, but I would try to, of course, the knee-jerk reaction, we try to defend yourself.
Yeah, I do. I think you do want to stand up for yourself to some degree, right? Because otherwise it's just going to fester in your mind, and you don't want that. You want to get to the heart of it. John, I'm going to jump to you, especially you coming from the education background. What would you say if somebody got blindsided?
Yeah, and I actually don't have to imagine it. I had an experience in my career where I got an evaluation where my boss, and this is not a lie, said I had no basic competency skills in my feedback. And that really stung, but it told me what I want to do and not want to do myself when I'm in a position to give an evaluation. And I would have preferred, I understood, I don't agree with it. I understood where maybe some of that was coming, because what this person evaluated, I could have done a little better, and I knew where I could have done what they were evaluating a little better. So that taught me, when I'm going to give feedback, if I am going to give a growth opportunity suggestion for someone, I want to really be able to provide them with resources so they can get better at that. Because that would have told me that this manager cared about my growth, not just as a put down, but actually cared about me getting better, which ultimately is in the best interest of the organization. So when that happens to someone, if their manager does not automatically give them those resources, give them those suggestions to improve, go back to the manager if you have that relationship with them, if they're actually willing to do that for you. And if not, are there others in the organization that can serve as a mentor for you, either officially as a mentor or informally?
Love it. Absolutely love it. Anna, what do you think? What would you advise someone who gets a poor performance review and didn't expect it?
I was loving what you were describing, John, and it's so difficult when you're in the middle of it, you're the recipient, of that, because we're only human, right? And the big capability that we have is not on things that happen to us, but on how we respond. So having that growth mindset and that mature perspective on count to 5 or 500 before I answer is definitely one. But I think bottom line, the opportunity that you have and connects to something that I've shared a few minutes ago is, my question to him would be, or her would be, when was this part of my expectations? When was these? I would challenge the tangibles, the factuals, you're telling me that I don't have this or I didn't do this, but when did this become one of my projects? I never even knew about this. So challenge back in a respectful way, seek to understand, and also to John's very good point, okay, we landed here in this very uncomfortable conversation. What are some of the things that you're willing to do to help me move from where I am today to where I need to be? And I'll be happy to partner with you on this. It's very, very difficult because the emotions, as Michael was describing, are, get the best of us, but it's important to keep, or try and keep the cool. And the last thing I would say is, okay, you've given me your feedback. So what is your feed forward?
Beautiful.
Okay.
I love the reframing of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. You're letting me know what happened previously, but how can we look at this together going forward? What a positive spin to it. It's beautiful, Anna. Lisa, what about you?
Yeah, I think one, you need to read the room, like how serious this is, and figure out what situation am I in? Is this like a really red flag, or do I have the opportunity to turn this situation around? So that's the first thing. And second, you got to bring it back to fact-based. What are the facts? What is the situation, and what are the measurements? What are the objectives? What do I need to do? And then develop an action plan and say, okay, here's what the goals are. Here are the tasks. Here are the time bound that I need to do, and develop that and be very clear and develop check-in points and meeting points to track what you're doing. And I love what John said in terms of, get a mentor in the organization to help you, and get allies to, if you think that this is achievable and turnaroundable, then get those people on your back court to help you and be your cheerleaders throughout your organization, to promote you to your boss.
I absolutely love that. I want to give a shout out to Randall, who's dialing in from LinkedIn today. Shared a great story. I was given a poor review. I asked the district manager, who is the best of the district. I went and shared with them. They looked at my review and the graphics and told me all I had to do was answer the phone on the first ring and a couple of other small items, and I would be in the top 3 in the district. The district manager never had made suggestions like this. I had to find it on my own. I'm glad I did. So going and getting that feedback on your own, finding a mentor, all of the things that all of you were suggesting, it's clear Randall did and is validating that with success. And I love that, Randall. That's a fantastic story. We've got a question from Patrick. It's 2 parts. He said, what if the employer thinks it's better to only talk about certain times of the year, and they give childish answers when you ask for suggestions to be better? For example, to be promoted, they said you need a clean desk. I mean, that's definitely a challenge. I mean, unfortunately, there are managers out there, right? They don't have time for it. The way they look at it is, when it's performance review time, that's when I'll do it. And it's amazing to me that they don't want to give that feedback. But they're out there. They're definitely out there. And I'll open up to any one of you. Has any of you ever dealt with a manager like that, or have any suggestions? All right, well, we'll go with John first, then to Lisa.
So I think Lisa hit it on the head when she said, evaluate the seriousness of the feedback that you're getting. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're looking for something to say because they feel they have to say something. I would, though, look around. If you find that people are getting promoted based on whether or not their desks are clean, then maybe you need to take that advice seriously. Otherwise, weigh it and see just how serious a suggestion it is. I'll leave it at that.
And then I would chime in and just say, look, sometimes you have to manage and lead up. If if it's not a credible suggestion and advice or counsel, sometimes you just have to manage up and say, hey, here are my priorities. Here's what I'm driving to, and send it to them on a weekly basis. And you let me know what I need to change and pivot to, and just manage the manager.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really tough. John, I think it was you that said it, but we've all kind of highlighted to it. The unfortunate truth is the bias that goes on. Like you said, if they bond or like a person, those individuals tend to get a better performance review, whereas somebody who isn't as well liked doesn't get as good a review. So personality plays a huge role in career success. And that's hard, because there's a lot of us out there that don't want to have to feel like they have to play that game, right? That's what I hear, or I think this is probably where the idea of office politics came into effect. And I think those conversations come out a lot around performance review time, especially when people aren't getting those solid reviews. So I want to ask each of you, and I'll have Anna and Michael kind of lead this one. Anna, if you know you're somebody that isn't warm and fuzzy or isn't popular, you do great work, but your personality, you know for a fact, is making you not the most liked person, is impacting your performance review, what advice would you give that person?
I would probably recommend either a mentor or a coach or both as a first step, and also find a peer or a couple of peers of yours that can help you and give you real time, not in the middle of the meeting, of course, but real time, same day type of feedback or comment or perspective, as I've mentioned before. And one quick red thread across performance management as well is the fact that we tend to forget that managers and leaders, you get promoted. The first time I got promoted, don't ask me why, but I got promoted. And then my career started to grow from there. And because of the passion of the area that I have of learning and coaching, I took it upon myself to read, to grow, to get a mentor, to get a coach, et cetera, et cetera. That is not the usual, but that is my area of expertise and experience and passion. Managers and leaders are not typically prepared when you are promoted. You are the best of the pack and you're promoted into manager as of Monday, and you're being sent to swim into the deeper end of the pool. So it's important to have that in the back of our minds, because managers and leaders may or may not have the experience and the expertise to do this type of work. So it's incumbent upon us as their direct reports to be prepared. And there's a lot of great insights from my colleagues today around that. So take it upon you to drive your performance versus anybody else controlling that.
Love it. I love it. Michael, do you have anything to add?
Yes, it's very tough though when someone just doesn't like you. It's very tough situation to be in, and you do your best to get around that. And I try to kick the tires myself as far as evaluate my self-evaluation. But when someone just doesn't like you, it's really a tough position to be in, because sometimes I would say to my wife sometimes that it doesn't matter what you do, they're not going to like you if you do one way or do it the other way. I would try to recommend just build a relationship with that person, some sort on, even if it's on a non-professional level, maybe take a step back, but just try to build a relationship with that person. But it's tough. It's really a tough position to be in. Really.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right. And I think so many people find themselves in that position at least once in your career, where you just can't put your finger on it. Why does this person not like you? What is it? And the more you try to unravel it, it's almost like the worse it gets. Right. Like you said, no matter whatever you try is not working. But I like all the feedback that you're all giving, which is seek out peers, seek out mentors, get that 360 feedback, which is something you said from the very beginning, Michael, as a way to just try to figure out how to be the best you can, but I would just also put my 2 cents in with all of you here today and say that as a career coach, I usually try to say to people, at some point, we're going to call this, you sticking it out and trying to fix everything they're telling you is wrong. You got to know when that's just never going to be enough.
Right.
And it's probably time to go find that next opportunity for your own sake, right? For your own self-confidence, because staying there and continuing to get these kind of negative reviews is not going to be great for you, you know, for your career confidence, right? But going and finding a place where you are a fit will. And I've seen so many people, you know, take these poor performance reviews and feel like, well, now I can't go anywhere. You know, I can't go until I fix it. When in reality, probably you should be leaving because you'll go find your star performer somewhere else.
Right.
You know, and so it's just interesting that, again, this time of year when you get these, if they're not strong, if you're not getting a relatively strong performance review where, hey, it's some good strategic feedback, but, you know, overall you've done a good job, that's time to evaluate where you are for sure. I just think it's so important. I love it. I love it. So folks, again, to recap, whoever's joining us here today, fabulous conversation on performance reviews, do's and don'ts. These four amazing executives started the conversation by talking about it from the manager's perspective and how to make sure you're conducting effective performance reviews, talked a lot about how to give that feedback, constructive feedback, or instead of it reframing it to perspective. But then we also flipped the switch here because that's what we do on Executive Table Talk, and really tried to provide you some advice around what to do when you're not getting an ideal performance review. So I want you to be thinking about that overall. Great ideas. Mentorship was a big one. Seeking out answers, being accountable for your own performance, all things that are super, super important here. Remember, folks, this is your career. This is your career. You're a business of one. You're a service provider. And so you have to think about how that business is going to stay in business. And one of the ways it does is by getting great reviews, right? So that's really, really important. With that in mind, I just want to go around because I can't believe our 30 minutes has gone by already. I'd love to give you all an opportunity to give us some closing thoughts, like your one piece of advice today, but also please let the audience know where they can find you. We always get right into it on Executive Table Talk, but I don't want to forget to give you all a chance to let them know where they can contact you directly. So, Michael, I'm going to bounce to you first. Parting words of advice, and where can people connect with you?
I would say for advice as far as evaluations, I would say just have a relationship with your boss. And I like rolling. If I have a problem for someone doesn't like what I do, I would like to know immediately. But sometimes you don't get that to the end. So just try to just stay in touch with what you're doing. You can find me on LinkedIn, Michael Willis, LinkedIn.com. You can find me there. Thank you.
John, what about you?
Your job is only one part of who you are as a person. So take the feedback, act on the feedback that you can act upon and grow upon, let the others slide, find your own rhythm, find your own place and space. And I as well can be found on LinkedIn at John Chimberry as well.
Thank you. Anna?
On that same note, if having reviews or conversations around performance is not a norm in your organization, or it's not part of how it's done, I would invite you to drive that with your managers on a monthly basis. So tell your manager, this is what we're going to be doing from now on, and this is what I need from you, and this is the help I need from you, and please let me know how I can improve and grow. So take your career, take your performance from that perspective. It's going to help you a ton. I think that's extremely important to continue your growth in your career. And you can find me as well on LinkedIn at Anna Smith Talent Strategist.
Wonderful. Lisa?
So the truth is, it's the little things that you do throughout the year. Set them up for success, support them with objectives that are clear and measurable. Keep the conversation going. It's two ways, and you want to be sure that you're giving them feedback and receiving feedback, and make sure that you're helping them track their success, and be sure that it's an ongoing. And by the time you get to the performance review, it's not a surprise. You can reach me at LinkedIn, Lisa Perry Marketing, and on TikTok, Brand Building.
I love it. Thank you, everyone, so much for another amazing conversation, folks. We'll be back again next week. Remember, we're always here Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time here on my LinkedIn feed. My name is JT O'Donnell, CEO of Work It Daily. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And until next time, remember what we tell you. If you want to win, you got to work it daily. Okay, everyone? Good luck. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.